How do you solve equations containing absolute value? So what are the things that we need to keep in mind? When you solve any kind of equation, no matter how complicated, we can boil it down to the process of undoing operations. So for example, to undo an addition, you would subtract. To undo a subtraction, you would add, and so on. For these equations, we'll be learning how to undo the operation of absolute value, which of course makes no sense at all unless you know what absolute value means. Absolute value of a number is its distance from zero, and we measure distances using only positive numbers. Let's take a look at a number line. The absolute value of -5 is 5, and that's because -5 is 5 units from 0. The absolute value of +5 is 5, because 5 is 5 units from 0. So both 5 and -5 are 5 units from 0. And finally, the last thing to know about absolute value is that we can undo an absolute value operation by dividing the problem into two cases. So let's look at an example. We want to solve this equation. Now notice that for certain values of x, that 2x minus 5 inside the absolute value signs, that could be a 9, or the value of 2x minus 5 for certain values of x could be a -9. And either one of those will work. So whatever value will make 2x minus 5 equal a +9, or for whatever value of x will make 2x minus 5 a -9, both of those values are going to work and they're going to lead us to the answer that we want. So this gives us two problems to solve, and both lead us to the solution. So now that we've separated our absolute value into two cases, we've basically undone that operation, and that leaves us with two problems to solve. So work through each one of these just as you would a normal linear equation. We get two solutions. Now they may both work. Beware, in situations like this, for absolute value problems, we can get extraneous solutions, so you need to double check your answers and make sure that they both work. We're convinced that they both work. We write our solution set, and we're ready for our next problem. One more example. We always have to isolate the absolute value expression before we can undo it, before we can separate it into the two cases. In this case, that absolute value is being multiplied by a 3, so we'll simply undo that by dividing out the 3. Now we've got our absolute value isolated. We can divide into two cases. We solve each one just as we would a normal linear equation. Let's double check that we did not get an extraneous solution. So plug each of those values for x back into the original equation. Yes, we're convinced they both work. We'll write our solution set and we're done. So what did we do? Well, we know that solving equations is just a matter of undoing operations. And in this case, we have to know how to undo an absolute value, which meant that we had to understand what it means to be an absolute value. Absolute value is basically the distance that a number is from 0 on the number line. And finally, the way that we technically undo this absolute value operation is by dividing the problem into two cases.